Now, your symbols will be overshadowed by the new swordsmanship of our fashion. The reason why the ancestor created this set of swordsmanship, so that the world may see it. My Zhongnan's martial arts are stronger than the Huashan's swordsmanship. Originally, I didn't think it made sense. If you use this set of swordsmanship to cut off your future in Huashan, it's funny just thinking about it. However, Sergeant Qingling, who had been silent for a long time, poof laughed. Is it just that clown-like swordsmanship? Underestimating him one after another. It made the anger in Qing Jinlong's eyes even stronger. It's just that Qingling hurriedly explained. Let him not get me wrong. He was referring to the central and southern faction that created that set of swordsmanship. You can see, the central-south faction has a great influence on you. You really get it. What is the meaning of that set of swordsmanship? Hearing this, Qing Jinlong also didn't understand. Does Qingming mean? I see that this guy really doesn't understand. Qingming happened to borrow his own words. He said, although this set of swordsmanship is very similar to Huashan's swordsmanship, but it's clear that he showed up in the middle and south. If it is in Huashan, I think it'll get sharper, also more gorgeous. Just this sentence. Qing Jinlong didn't think deeply. His opinion, Qingming just said this for the sake of bickering. This also made him completely impatient. I saw that the internal force was surging all over his body. He's going to show this kid. The phantom sword that belongs to Zhongnan. It will cover the sky like a blade. Even the sunlight can't shine in. Similarly, there was no way his opponent could have escaped with this move. And this is the snowflake that he has refined to the extreme. That day, the entire Huashan faction. It was as if it were about to be torn to pieces by the white blade. Everyone's heart. It seems to be covered in an invisible face. There was no fear, even if one disciple escapes from it. Even the plum blossoms that Lu Yixue once longed for. At this moment, there is only incomparable depression left. Only Qingming. The scene is a little different, but it still made him dream back to the big war 100 years ago. Maybe the guys from the demon cult. When you see plum blossoms in the sky. That's the mood. Although this is just a showcase without recommendations. But it's not without threat. However, when Yun Xian saw Qing Yun's driving, the elders also found out. He actually wanted to use the Adrian martial arts to learn the 7 sword paths. But this set of swordsmanship, compared to the 12 histories of snowflakes used by the other party, the choice of Qingling, who is too weak, is undoubtedly to hit the stone with egg. But what they don't know is, even if it was 100 years ago, is also only the true meaning that the pure soul can comprehend. Huashan swordsmanship was never for the purpose of evolving plum blossoms. Rather, let the plum blossoms bloom. And as long as you can master the sword intent of Huashan, any Huashan swordsmanship can make him bloom. At this moment, Qing Jinlong seemed to see it. A scene that I would never have seen in this life. The plum blossoms had disappeared in Huashan for 100 years. He appeared in front of him. And what he never expected was, the moment the snow falls in the sky and touches the plum blossoms, it seems to have become a moon in the water. The speed of disintegration is like a pool of water being hit by a pebble. All reflections will disappear in the next second. Qing Jinlong was puzzled at this time. His snowflake sword has long been perfected. But why this antique swordsmanship from 100 years ago? He was able to dismantle his illusion. And Qingming finally spoke again. Zhongnan's biggest mistake is the swordsmanship of Huashan, just chasing the pattern of plum blossom. But how is this possible? However, Qingming did not. It's talking about all the Tao gates and the rivers and lakes are all sustenance with something. The Tai Chi of Taoist Wudong, the collection of the 5 elements of the sun. Only Huashan is a plum blossom. But his essence, it is to let a new life bloom under the sword. It doesn't matter what the flower is. However, the mountains are full of plum blossoms. Therefore, it became the belief that people here needed to live. But for thousands of years, most people are attracted by its magnificence, bedazzled by the sharpness of the sword. So instead they are mired in the mud of appearances. It's like the current golden dragon. And this is the great gift prepared by Qingming for the central and southern faction. Let them see for themselves. This weapon has its own swordsmanship behind the barrel. How to be crushed by me. From now on, every time you swing your sword, I will unconsciously think of today's situation. Eventually, you will find out, no matter how powerful the martial arts are in your minds, none of them can get rid of this set of swordsmanship. They'll do it for you thieves. Put on an invisible shackle. Even if one day you can get rid of it. For you guys, wasted time will also be devastating. We, Huashan, will never disappear. Jimei Jinlu is the successor of Liu's sword and Plum Blossom sword, the first martial arts that set the sword wings of Huashan. With the basic slashing technique of Liuha, form the wings of the Plum Blossom sword into a sword arm. Then the sword arms are brought together. Make it bloom into a chaotic fireworks. Flying petals melt into the wind. Qin Jinlong understood. That's what I suggested. Accompanied by a loud bang that seemed to change the world. The hand of this second-generation disciple of Zhongnan completely swallowed by the dazzling plum blossoms. Until now, he seemed to be finally able to feel it. What is Huashan's swordsmanship? It's beautiful. But why can't my sword be so beautiful? That's it. He was completely defeated in the plum blossoms that bloomed in Qingming. And this will be in a ring. It's already devastated. But I waited a long time. In the entire martial arts arena, the noisiest thing seems to be the autumn wind. Until the boy spoke slowly. This Central China Conference is our Huashan faction. Hum one. Suddenly, everyone came to their senses. During the day, he seemed to have completely forgotten about himself. The scarred body. This is the 100 years of Huashan's repression. For the first time, I raised my eyebrows in the real sense. Even the head of the house. None of them could resist the wind and sand in his eyes. Come to think of it, that's a rock. Qingming that sealed the approval. And it did. Let's look at the second generation of disciples. Although not a single game was won. Although it was so pretentious before. But when the name Huashan appeared, that kind of feeling is not worth mentioning. And that's the meaning of the sect. Thinking in his eyes. But someone suddenly grabbed him. Xiaojia also seems to have completely forgotten who he is. Shout at that one, brother. Senior brother, that fart is too fierce. What everyone doesn't know, however, at this time, the inner breath of the pure soul is disordered. This battle, it takes a long, long time just to heal from internal injuries. But he didn't care. Although Zhongnan and Huashan are very close to each other, there will be no fewer disputes in the future. But that's enough for now. Wait until Yunyan walks into the ring. He still couldn't believe it. Such a terrifying battle is clearing. If it weren't for the teenager nodding and mentioning, he didn't even dare to publish the dream he had just had. The half-hour meeting was over. Qing Ling looked up. Senior brother, is this okay? You praise me. But the thought came to this. The boy laughed to himself. After all, senior brother is a stingy person. At this time, the 3 generations of disciples had already rushed forward excitedly. It doesn't matter that Qing Ling is screaming pain at that point. And so celebrated. Xuanzong looked at this scene. He had almost forgotten. How long has it been since I saw my disciples? I was so happy as I am today. In the next situation, it's about him as the head of Huashan, in order not to be rude to Count. Although he knew that Sima Shang couldn't spit out ivory in his mouth, but he could only listen quietly to the other party's roar. Also, you remember, only by virtue of the competition between the second and third generations of disciples, it is simply impossible to change anything. I'm from the Zhongnan faction. The loud voice of Qingming's mouth came again. Why are you still so rude? Senior brother Zhao Jie has won a few competitions. But seriously, Xiao Jie is indeed upright. Twice used as a gun, stun was completely unnoticed. That's it. I don't know why the talent in martial arts is so good. But Qingming doesn't care about that at this time. It's the same kick again. Same location. The painful little Jie rolled on the ground. He said that you were a senior brother. It's the elders. How can you lose your physique? That's rude. However, this refers to Sang's trick of scolding Why. Sima Lao Thief didn't understand it again. And Qingming completely ignored his angry gaze. 3 generations of disciples. At the same time, he also saluted to the head of the sect Xianzong. Take a closer look at this scourge. Sima Sheng's anger had reached its peak. Suddenly, a terrible thought grew in his mind. But what came was the sound of young Qingqing's blood. Are you sure you can kill with one hit? Then Qingming turned around. He seems to be able to see through everything. But there is no trace on his face to indicate next time. I'll butter you first. That's it. The old thief suddenly let out an inexplicable roar. He strode out. Even the children of the sect didn't bother to take another look. That's it, elders. It's no wonder that most of the central and southern factions are arrogant hairy children. At this time, Xuanzong's soft call pulled him back. But what he never expected was that the voice of the boss has worked hard for you. He actually saw the shadow of his senior brother. The boy lowered his head. Sure enough, I still want to hear you praise me, even if it's just a misplaced time and space. Qing Ling seemed to answer. Xuanzong also seemed to be answering his senior brother. You seen the outside. But suddenly, the noise on the side gradually approached. The squires and celebrities invited by Lord Wang. They are clamoring to talk to the boss. Everyone said that there was a business that they wanted to cooperate with Huashan. This makes it one old and one young. At the same time, he looked at the man who was the most suitable for the matter. Saw that the eyes of the master of the financial pavilion were full of gold. Shouting about this kind of thing. Look for me. Come, and we have a lot of time. Let's talk slowly. Seeing this, Xuanzong didn't say anything more. Said he should go back too. The disciples congratulated the head of the house. There was another man behind him. It is said that he is looking for Qingming. Originally, Li Songbai found him regardless of the current form of the 2 factions. He did care, even if he will become a traitor in the eyes of his disciples. He also felt compelled to come here to thank Qingming for his teachings. He now finally understood the meaning of that sentence. The heart looked at Li Songbai, who expressed kindness to himself. Sergeant Banyan reminded. The path you choose can be tough. Even so, are you going to go down too? And Li Songbai smiled calmly. He also knew what he was up against. But this is not the path he wants to take. It's that he has to go. This is also the purpose of the Taoist many instructions. Isn't it? Wait until Li Songbai limps away from Qingming, knowing that this guy is going to have a lonely fight. This post-war period, the disciples of Central South Sect are afraid that they will completely fall into an illusion, obsession. He alone wanted to keep their true lineage. It's hard to think about. But anyway, if he succeeds, maybe it will become the hope of the Central South faction. And yet for a moment, Yin Zhong suddenly turned back and came to him, said that the boss wanted to talk to him alone. Isn't it? This kind of commotion is coming. It's going to make him so foolish. It's not normal. Long. Qingming keeps making excuses for himself. Let's just say that I am actually your ancestor. Definitely not. But that kind of martial arts adventure seems too stupid. Unconsciously, the boy had already arrived at the council chamber. The master of the finance pavilion liked him very much when he saw him. After all, he really hadn't seen it. After the competition, a large amount of investment can pour into Huashan. And Xian Shang will also be very happy. He said the wound on his face was small. But in case of suppuration, it is not good. I'll ask the medicine hall master to come over. I'm going to give you medicine myself. Nagato looked at them like this. It's also helpless. So he got up slowly. He said, Qingming, can you go out with me and talk? In this way, the boy is like amnesty. Hurley followed. However, the two were speechless all the way. Unconsciously, he has walked into the depths of Huashan. Qingling can be keenly discovered. The back of the current head. Compare it to when you were in a secret cave. It's a lot taller. In this way, they came to the highest peak of Huashan. The afterglow of the setting sun went straight to their figures. Xian Song glanced at Qingming. He said that your swordsmanship made the plum blossoms bloom. I saw a young man who was excited. He almost forgot about it. But no matter what, as long as the donkey's lips are not right on the horse's mouth, it should be fine. However, this time, Qingming thought too much. The head bowed to him very sincerely. He said that I am now thanking you as Xuanzong. You helped me fulfill the greatest wish of my life. But the identity of the head of Huashan, it's much more important than me. So I had to ask at least one thing. How did you do it with 7 swords? Let the plum blossoms bloom. Qingming at this time, it seems that he finally understands the mind of this master. So he told Xuanzong, there is no way to do this. When the 7 sword paths have been practiced to a certain level, sometime it starts. It will be natural for the plum blossoms to bloom, although the disciples don't quite know why. But I want to come to Huashan for all the swordsmanship. Eventually it should all be done. Xuanzong breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, this is Huashan's swordsmanship. He just got ahead of the others. Maybe someday, all the disciples of Huashan, maybe they can make the plum blossoms bloom. Huashan at that time, he was thinking. Qingling said coldly, it's just everyone now. There's still a lot to lose, although it is to ruin the rare atmosphere. But Xuanzong didn't care too much. He asked what Qingling Huashan is to you. Maybe it's because the problem comes from this boss. Qingling's thoughts suddenly returned to 100 years ago. Hit yourself for as long as you can remember. It is thanks to the blessing of Huashan. Teach me martial arts. Take care of me. At that time, I also asked my senior brother this sentence. But I seem to have been beaten by him. His answer. Now I want to come. It seems that I finally understand something. The meaning of senior brother. The head of the sect is for the disciples. Huashan is Huashan. It's not anything or anything. In this way, Xuanzong's eyes looked at the young man for a long time. He was actually very happy, because no matter what the circumstances come into the future, for Qingling, this will always be Huashan, and he's a disciple of Huashan. That's enough. Thereupon, Xuanzong patted his own poo and said your performance today, even if you want to stay where you want to go in the future. Presumably, the world will not ignore it, and I'm with Huashan. I'll definitely help you stop it. Hearing this, Qingming's eyes were full of surprise. He probably had many questions for me. In the end, it was changed to protect me. Xinsong, although he has neither attained, there is no reputation either. But I still respect him from the bottom of my heart. So the boss, you shouldn't protect me. Even if it's for Huashan, we should also move forward together. Today's Bake My Pavilion is particularly lively. The children reminisced about the battle with Zhongnan, especially those. The children who have defeated the disciples of Zhongnan with their own hands. It's even more exciting. But Xiaojia's brain is in seeds. It was filled with 7 swords of Qingming. This feeling is also felt in the shadows. It's as if the whole person has been sucked in. You didn't know how to express it. If you could perform that fantastic sword technique yourself. The 2 children haven't found out yet. So far, they never thought about what they could reach. The goal has always been to become stronger. But when they saw the swordsmanship performed by Qingling, there was already a strong desire in my heart. They wanted to be able to perform that sword technique themselves. No, as a disciple of Huashan, How could it be that he couldn't use Huashan's swordsmanship? Xiao Jieyaran is right. Think about it. But suddenly, the door was violently kicked open. When I watched it, I realized that it was the devil fan who came back. He said that you are like that. There is still a face to gossip here. How to win the competition? Is life over? Brothers, you went against imps who were generally 5 or 6 years younger than you. Happy. In other words, just 2 years ago, you're a bunch of kids who are still having a runny nose. Beating Zhong is indeed a little embarrassed. I made an excuse and said that it was inevitable to make mistakes. The line of this transformation looks even more fiery. Big brother, you were stabbed on the battlefield. Can you still smile and tell me that it was a mistake after you fell? You cultivate with this kind of thinking. And then what to say? Be later. Is it possible to perform that kind of swordsmanship? Listen to them all. It's just one win. There will be countless battles in the future. This is in your life. Not a thing at all. Do you understand? The mentality in the film adjusts quickly. Seize the opportunity. I asked the question I was most concerned about. Is it to cultivate according to the requirements of Qingming? They really have a day to perform that set of swordsmanship. However, what he got was the devil's true face. It has nothing to do with whether each of you wants to do it or not. Unless you want to die. Otherwise, I'll have to do it all. I'm still stunned for what to do. Now, give me the cultivation right now. Mexican, the originally lively white plum pavilion was left with Xingling alone. Although 3 generations of disciples. Indeed, it was the most exaggerated rate of progress he had ever seen. But if it's floating now, I'm afraid suddenly, Xingling noticed some movement outside the house. While the 3 generations of disciples are all gone. That's when he showed up. It was the daytime when he was supposed to be lying in a hospital bed. Uncle Shi pulled Qingming to the back mountain. Seems to want to say something, but it's fragmented. Look at his disgusted look again. During the day, Zhongshi breathed a long sigh of relief. He said that you have a competition with Qing Jinro. It was a landslide victory. Your uncles are shocked. But after everyone calmed down, at the bottom of my heart, I still can't help but have mixed feelings. So I want to be stronger. Although I am my uncle. It's a shame to say that. But I know it's the best way to go. Although I don't want to admit it. But it's clear. And so on. It is very likely that we will be surpassed by 3 generations of disciples. So you're trying to let go of your self-esteem. Let me teach the 2nd generation of disciples, including you. But why should I teach you? Think about it. What I can't get from the 2nd generation of disciples. But it could be obtained from 3 generations of disciples. During the day, his brow was furrowed. Because he's very keenly aware. Qingling wants it. It was all the 2nd generation disciples who bowed their heads to him. But this kind of thing is unprecedented. And during the day, he's a lord with a strong sense of self-esteem. Qingling didn't care about holding his hands on his chest. He said, Uncle Shi, have you seen the cultivation of 3 generations of disciples with your own eyes? If you're always as an elder, then can I still treat you like I did to 3 generations of disciples? Originally, my training brothers were reasonable. But if do you think Uncle Shi will spare me? During the day, I was glad that Qingming didn't say anything to death. But he was so entangled in his heart. In the middle of the day, the sergeant bit his lower lip hard. He said all the 2nd generation disciples. You can respect him as a teacher during the Qingming teaching. But this proposal was rejected again by Qingming. Because after the cultivation is over, if they curse themselves behind their backs, he still suffers. Isn't it, since you want me to teach you? Just bow my head completely. If not, the matter is abandoned. You recall the battle between Lime and Qin Jinlong. Even though he didn't want to. But if you can surpass that mountain, it's all worth it. Stared at him during the day and said yes. I promise you, from now on, you are not my teacher. 2nd generation disciple of Huashan will not question your leadership and behavior. I vouch for it in my name. That's it when I took the bait. Classes will start at midnight the next day. The children walked out of the white eyebrow pavilion again with sleepy eyes. I was almost frightened by the scene in front of me. I saw that all the uncles were standing in a row. At this time, Qingming also slowly came to the outside of the house. Although there seems to be a guess in my heart, but he still couldn't believe it. Qingming patted him on the shoulder. He said that the senior brothers were bullied too badly by the senior uncles before. I watched from the sidelines. It's heart-wrenching. I saw the young man grinning. The smile is yes. Now you can rest assured. From today, the cultivation time will be opened. A beautiful era of equality for all. Billy, Yin Zhong has already begun to worry about his uncles. I saw Qingming clasping his hands into fists. He said everyone knows that. Only when you feel hard can you call it cultivation. There are no shortcuts to become strong. So doing our best is the only way we can do it. Do you understand? In this way, with the participation of the 2nd generation of disciples, a new round of magic has begun. But Yin Zhong didn't understand. Why is there no new arrangement for such a day? But I didn't expect the meaning of clearing. It is for them to tell the uncles themselves how to build muscles. Meet, you see the happy appearance of children. It seems that the next 3 months and 10 days, Huashan will remember the fresh whale. However, just as the children scrambled to go, and instructing teachers and uncles to practice, leading but walking out abruptly, it turned out that none of the 3 generations of disciples dared to go, touching the brow of the goddess of coldness. He also hoped that the other party would teach him personally, and Qingling wanted him to retreat. He said that if he learned from him, no matter how much he begs for mercy in the future, he will not be relentless. Lu Yixue was full of stiffness. The only thing he wanted to be sure of was, not as long as he can persevere. You can perform a sword technique that makes plum blossoms bloom. But it reminded him. So Qing Zero shouted to everyone. He said, I'm going to say hello to you guys in advance. The disciple of Huashan. You can't just aim for the plum blossoms, because that's just a process. Remember your goals. You should learn to make plum blossoms bloom. Suggested that Lu Yixue be thoughtful. Only then did he accept the guidance of the rest. Fooling everyone is finally ready. Qingming is actually very happy. In the past, she only cared about her own strength. Come on now. That's not right. After all, Huashan has to face not a strong opponent. It's other sects on the rivers and lakes. And all of them, when they all grow to the point where they can make plum blossoms bloom, the other sects are finished. I want to dominate the rivers and lakes. It is best to draw plum blossoms on the heads of the bald donkeys in Shaolin. At this time, not far from the mountain lump, Yun Jin looked at his white eyebrows. Unbelievable. Even the white characters practiced with Qingming. Although about that child, there are so many things that cannot be understood, but not to satisfy my curiosity. And it made him resist. Maybe that's what the boss said. Let it be. As long as Qingling is still my brother in Huashan, there was no reason for the sun to stop him from doing these things. But now I'm idle. If only he had taught me the same. Wouldn't it seem too greedy? That's it. Qingling's song helped Huashan overcome the first hurdle. For him, the growth of the 3 generations of disciples is indeed very exaggerated. The near future can be imagined. They're all going to be real masters. The bottom of my heart will be inexplicably impatient, and a sense of burden on the shoulders. It was already very heavy when it was found. It turns out that this is the mood of the leader. Although my internal strength is growing slowly. But there really isn't a thing to rush at the moment. And later, Huashan is always protected from this steep cliff. I had to do that before that. Build a backer they can trust. For this I have to be stronger. It is more powerful than the former plum blossom sword venerable, even beyond the heavenly demons. Someday, the whole day will be enveloped in the fragrance of plum blossoms. Senior brother in charge. Don't worry, I'll be able to do it. Because I'm clear. And the time of Huashan passed quietly. Every season seems so careless. 2 years seem to stand still here in Huashan. This day is cold in spring. A small figure slowly climbed the dangerous road of Huashan. Didn't know how long it took. Finally came to the Huashan faction that I had in mind. Since the Central China Congress 2 years ago, their status today is completely different. I hope my father's judgment is not wrong. Then he saw the boy knocking on the door. After that, there was a quiet wait. You can see it. He was in rags. But the upbringing was excellent. In the middle of the night, he opened the door. Only then did the boy learn that Huashan did not receive visitors today. No wonder there was no one on his way up the mountain. But the boy did have something to worry about. Asked to see the boss. He said I wasn't an outsider. My name is Wei Xiaoxing. It was sent by Huashan folk sect Wine sect. I didn't take into account the situation of your faction and went up the mountain. It's true that I'm wrong. But can you bother for the sake of human? Tell the boss about it. After a while, Xiaoxing successfully came to the conference hall. The master of the finance pavilion heard that he was from a Chinese-speaking family. Say everything you have come and see. After all the past 30 years, all the laymen in Huashan have 5 doors. Only this one is offered every year. And that's why. The head will lead the people. The reason for meeting this teenager together. Chuanzeng told him not to worry. Things are coming slowly. Available to everyone here. In his eyes, they're all big shots. Plus, he was already anxious in his heart. So, I forgot about it completely. People don't know what's going on. The opening is. I hope that Huashan Shenlong Qingming Dao is long. You can go to Huimin to relieve the siege. This really startled everyone. Fortunately, Xian Song is quite calm. Remind him to tell the whole story. That's what I learned. The reason was that a new martial arts gym had opened opposite their house. And it's from the Wu-Tang clan. Lei sects. Originally it was nothing, but they did it for discipleship. Has always provoked the Chinese language. Finally his father, that is, the owner of Huimin can't bear it, chose to compete with the other party. Father won though, but he was also seriously injured. And now, they have now gone to Wudong Mountain to find reinforcements, saying everything is going to take off the plaque of their house and drive out an Nanyang. That's why it's here. My father hurriedly sent him here. Hearing this, although Xian Song felt that this matter was not simple, But it is also true that the problem cannot be allowed to develop. After all, the size and number of secular martial arts halls. This is the government affairs at the peak of the sect. And quickly, some of the second generation of disciples. I want to talk to the Jinshan disciples who are still in Huashan. The museum opened on the mountain. From any point of view, they should be in charge of this matter. But look at the appearance of this little guy. Vowed to be invited 2 years ago. Defeat the line of the Central South faction alone and go back. Although it's true. But I always felt that the big hero was pressed on the child's head. It's kind of outrageous. Half a day from the Shin Song let him out. Later, everyone began to discuss what you said and what I said. It's just the focus of their considerations. It's not about helping Human at all. But, can you let that kid out of line? Obviously, that guy hasn't stopped in the past 2 years. I'm afraid that Qingling will be released. Huang Gate has not been dealt with yet. He rushed to Wudong to make a big fuss. Yun Jin can see it. Anyway, sooner or later, I'll have to let him go down the mountain. Something like a walking star. It's better to wake up later than to open your mind earlier. Hearing this, Xian Song also felt right. From Yun Yin, I learned that Qingling was in retreat, and he will be out of customs in a few days. The head asked him to call Yin Zhong first. However, it was learned that the elders planned to release Qingling. There was almost a stress reaction in the movie. Actually, he can't be blamed for this. After all, everything is a normal thing. Get involved with Qingling. In an instant, life and death became unpredictable. In desperation, the elders had no choice but to let him, with the young master of Huang Gate, go meet the green spirit. The boy was born at Noonmin. He makes sense to practice martial arts in childhood, but in his eyes, this Jinshan disciple in front of him, it's like a calm lake, had no bottom. He also talked a lot about the movie along the way. The legend of the Qing spirit Tao on the rivers and lakes. There are all sorts of sayings. It's staggering to hear. But it's a pity. None of them were the devil's names in his memory. The two chatted. Before you know it, you have come to Plum Blossom Cave. Isn't this retreat that the pure soul is retreating? It's just that when I want to shout out Qingling in the shadow, I couldn't help but be stunned in my heart. I saw him quietly shouting a few times. I'm afraid that the other party will really hear it. Such a move makes. The Xiaoxing was very puzzled. However, just as Yunzhong was going to take him away, more on that tomorrow, the boulder behind him suddenly burst open with a bang. Xiaoxing looked back. A figure slowly walked out of the dust and smoke. That person is legendary. One of the few rising stars in the world. It's just that the other party hasn't come out yet. Nana's voice was already heard. I eat Big Dan every day. I'm tired of it. Next time, I will have a junior retreat. I'm going to change my name and surname. What's going on? This person shouldn't be Qing Ming. He is the first day of the popular people today. He is also the mad dog of Huashan in the eyes of the same door. Under his careful cultivation, today's Huashan disciple is already a generation of masters who are not inferior to any sect. And on this day, the Lei family woman sent people to the mountain gate. I heard that the Wudong faction would intervene in the battle of the woman this time. In this matter, the boss has a lot of questions in his heart. First of all, Wudong is known as the head of the Taoist sect in the rivers and lakes. There is no reason to do so. Then Anyang's originally a land of projectiles. Not rich, but it must be overbearingly occupied, and dissidents must be excluded. This has to be reminiscent. They're coming for zero. After all, the battle with Zhongnan 2 years ago. Qingling has been exaggerated by the entire rivers and lakes. Yun Jin comforted the master. Qingling's nickname in Huashan is Mad Dog. It's a bit excessive, though. But the children have suffered so much in the past 2 years. With their current strength, even if there are some targets. Presumably, those people don't like much. The only thing we have to worry about. I'm afraid that the kid won't be too fierce when he goes out. There has to be the right person to dissuade it in time. So the boss. About the children who went with Qing Ming. I have a few candidates in mind. The other side. Yin Zhong reluctantly took Qing Ming, who was in retreat. Shouted out. It means the head of the house is looking for him. Qing Ming glanced at the boy. It turned out that he was Wei Xiaoxin, the young master of Huanman. He remembered 100 years ago. Among the secular sects of Huashan, there is one named Huanman. I didn't expect it to come down after so many years. They're still alive. Only this time his mouth was bitter. All I could think about was seeing Nagato quickly. I went to the cafeteria to eat and drink. Seeing this, Yin Zhong had no choice but to beckon Xiaoxing to follow. He was in a hurry. Obviously, if you can't see the Huashan Shenlong today, I don't want to go back at all. However, Yin Zhong didn't know either. Will Mingming's virtue ruin the expectations of young people? I saw him helplessly expressed, although I don't know what Huashan Shenlong is. But the guy we're looking for is that guy. He is Qing Ming. Half a day. There was a violent invective from the council chamber. That's it. Xiaoxing, who met for the first time, was also scared. To see Qing Ming patting his chest, rest assured, boss. I'll leave this to me. Make sure that the treatment is clean. Can I ask you what you want to do with it? Do you need to ask? Smash their heads, of course. By the way, of fire. Burn that thing clean from the gym. This will make Yun Jian panic too. Quietly asked the master about the matter of letting the spirit go down the mountain. Shouldn't we think again? It's weird. Jingling's words were heard by the master of the finance and economics pavilion. There is nothing wrong with it, especially when he heard Xingling say that we are not like this. In the future, who will be willing to give silver to honor us? And Xuanzang only feels a headache. I really wanted to go down the mountain. I need to find a few more children to watch. But as long as he can see those guys, Xingling doesn't matter. Who will stop him? The head asked the film to settle Wei Xiaoxia today. The three of them left the chamber like that. Ang Yingtong turned around and shouted Qingming. Ask him if the retreat has been fruitful. I saw the boy smile at my harvest. The Wudong guys will experience it for themselves. Huashan Canteen teenager. It's like never eating in your life. Gobble up. You see, he shoved it into his mouth first. Then pull it out when you pull it out. The bones were as if they had been washed. Xiaoxing's heart only felt. This person is typically known for meating as well. Such a vulgar person said that he was the Huashan divine dragon. He preferred to believe. The slow-swallowing Yin Daxiao beside him. And Qingming seems to have finally eaten a little refreshing. Look up. Ask coldly about when I wasn't there. You've all cultivated seriously, right? Suddenly, in the cafeteria, no one thinks that eating is fragrant. Basically, they all blame senior brother Ian in their hearts. It's hard to enjoy life. I have to call this mad dog out in advance. Qingming just wanted to say that I would check your results later. Was persuaded by Yin Zhong. The most important thing at the moment is to solve the matter of Human first. This barely allowed everyone to escape. Stay until you're full. Qingming leaves the cafeteria. The disciples breathed a sigh of relief. Xiaoxing listened to it clearly. Bai Shang thought he was going to be beaten again. He was taken aback. Isn't that guy the youngest? But why even these uncles? It all depends on his face. Yin Zhong will also have palpitations. But he didn't want to reminisce about it at all. Can only say that it is good that Wei Xiaoxia does not have to bother to understand. After all, even if you don't want to know, you'll understand it in the future. Early the next morning, Xiaoxing waited outside the head of the house early with his luggage. Look at his anxious appearance. Yin Zhong did not forget to comfort him. You won't be late. Slight footsteps. Xiaojia was the first to discover. It seems that Uncle Shi has also arrived during the day. Hear the name. Xiaoxing hurriedly looked back. He'd heard a lot about flower credentials. Rumors of the day. Only one person went down the mountain to exterminate dozens of bandit dens. Look at this heroism again. The admiration of the young man can be seen at a glance. Yin Zhongxiao is a book during the day. Had a good night's sleep last night. But obviously, it's not good at all during the day. Qingming's exit from the customs is already very disturbing. As a result, I had to go down the mountain with him. What kind of iniquity have I done? After whining. That's when I remembered. There was also a child I had never seen before. Xiaoxing hasn't come out of the painting style just now. This will introduce himself in a hurry. However, there was an eerie feeling behind him. It scared him out again. Take a closer look. Only then did I find out that it was a woman. And it's beautiful, isn't it? Grows so big. It was the first time he had seen such a beautiful person. But he quickly came to his senses. Obviously, there are not many disciples in Huashan now. But everyone is exaggerated in their hearts. And the most special of them is still to talk about that person. 3 generations of disciples. The 3 of them in Qingming were as if they had eaten flies. My heart tightened. Seriously, they actually hoped for it. This guy can miss the meeting time. However, Lai was also surprised. It's not just Uncle Shi who is going. Even my aunt has to follow. I really thought of it. The head of the house just pushed the room open. The disciples finished their salutes. Xian Song said seriously about Wei Xiaoxia at this time. These children are trustworthy people. I think I will definitely be able to help the Gui fashion. And you have to take care of them during the day. In the snow shadows. And Sister Zhao. 3. And you 3 will help well. That's all for the day. Just turned his head. Especially Qingming. Don't get into trouble. What? Why is my advice different from theirs? However, Xuanzang did not pay attention to Qingming's complaints. Go with a smile. Go tell the world. Huashan is still alive. It's been 2 years, it's time. Let the world see the rejuvenated appearance of Huashan. But 2 years ago, we are still worried that the disciples will be humiliated by Zhongnan. Even if I am given 10,000 chances to do it all over again, I wouldn't have thought it that soon. I'm going to worry. Will they be too ruthless against other sects? Although I know that they're traveling to the South Seas, it shouldn't be that simple. But think to come to the abilities of those children. There shouldn't be any problems. Half an hour later, the group has already come to Huayin County. It's not a long way to go. But if it doesn't, it will definitely not be able to catch up with the speed of Wudong's departure. But Wei Xiaoxing's physical strength. It's impossible to follow them all the way there. When the frown is worried, Qingming suddenly stood up. He arrogantly took out strings of silver from his pockets. That's it. They managed to get a 2-horse carriage. Qingling also did not forget to buy some fine wine. This look at Xiaoxing is even more outrageous. Daytime knew that this was the kid's prerogative. I had to explain. Huashan does not have a ban on drinking outside. Wei Shefsha. Let's tell us about the whole story. And what kind of noon gate is Huayan Gate? Hearing this, Xiaoxing lowered his head. He said that there is nothing special about our human. It's just that my father has always been proud to be a disciple of Huashan. 2 years ago, my father was very happy when he heard about the Central China Conference. He said that Huashan will be like a kunpeng spreading its wings and soaring again. Then pull me, watch him drink up 2 pots of wine that have been treasured for many years. Although, exactly, my great-grandfather was a lay disciple of Huashan, but he has always kept this identity in his heart. And the father was lucky. Woman has been doing well. That didn't make our family hungry. Hear this daytime face policy. He knew when Huashan was down. Only Huayan Gate is there. The dignified self-proclaimed Huashan layman. That's it alone. Huangmin is a very extraordinary martial arts. Qingling listened to their conversation. That's what I understand. In order to keep the identity of Huashan layman, they are willing. I must have suffered a lot. And the most bizarre thing is, his father had been practicing martial arts for many years. It will be easy to lose to the owner of a young martial arts sect. It's anomalous. After all, the deeper the internal force in the rivers and lakes, the slower the body ages. This is also why many seniors, if not too weak. It must be because of the first-class master. Problems were also found during the day. If it is a battle between lay sects, there are too many suspicious things. And Xiaoxing at this time, I don't know what this Hua Zhongjian is thinking. He was ashamed now, although it was to seek help from Huashan, but he never thought that Huashan would really make a move, especially what they have to face. It is still a Wudong faction supported by the First Gate, so this time regardless of the outcome, I will be grateful to this sect for the rest of my life. But the boy's confession was cleared. I saw him sit up. What's there? Regardless of the outcome, I'm telling you, there is only one result. It's just that I'm going to smash those guys' heads. Xiao Hang was curious. Why is this guy so obsessed with his head? Yin Zhong also asked him to restrain himself. If you continue like this, you will be angry with the boss. The head can be mentioned. Qingming is even more excited. It's because he doesn't have many days left in his old man's house. So I have to do it before he returns to the west. Let him see me blow up the heads of those guys, so he could leave with a smile. Isn't that good, guys? A word from him. It can be expressed as respect for Nagato and disobedience to colleagues. I heard Qingling shouting senior brother. Hurry up. Those heads are still waiting for me. How expensive these 2 carriages are. Don't worry, they'll be able to withstand it. The next day, the sky was cloudy and rainy, like a thick ink splashing open. The man counted the days with a trembling body. The people who want to come to this sect are also about to arrive. And he is the owner of this generation of Huayan Gate. Wei Lishan just took care of his younger brother. The son is still persuading, although Huashan has become famous in recent years. But Wudong is the head of today's Taoism. No one is a fool, and how could he be willing? Get involved in this kind of fighting. Wake up, master. However, the truth is understood by the Wei sect master. But he always believed in it. Huayan Gate is a secular martial arts gate of Huashan. They are an inseparable part of Huashan. Let him give up this identity. This martial arts sect has no meaning of existence. So Yiping, I'm just holding on. It's just something I should be holding on to. And I saw him clenching his fists. He also understood that it was impossible for the master of the sect to give up Huashan. That's why. I will admire the master. But it goes on like this. Huamin is afraid. At this moment, there was a sharp knock on the door outside. You can hear the voices outside from afar. They said they had come today to negotiate with the master. So hurry up and open the door. It is clear that the people of Wudong have arrived. But being the master of the door is only for a moment. His eyes changed from hunger to determination. So he slowly got out of bed. At all costs. He can't be ridiculed. Hua Yemen is a gawless rat. And so the door slowly opened. The owner of the door did not say politely. He had nothing to say to the owner. I said it was okay. Whoever loses will get out of Nanyang. But he's still here today, completely disregarding his own face. Don't you care about Wudong's face? But the other party seems to have a thicker skin than the city walls. The rules of the rivers and lakes are anyone's fists, and whoever says it. I went from the Taoist hall to now being run by Wudong disciples. So now I want you to leave Nanyang within today. It makes sense, but the attitude of the owner of the door is very tough. This also made the hall owner have a little murderous intent in his eyes. Lightning and thunder followed in the sky. It seems to set off the tense atmosphere between the 2 sides at this time. At this time, a man walked out slowly. I hope to be able to personally communicate with the Lord of Weimen. Let's negotiate. But his appearance, the Lord of the Wei sect immediately trembled. A Taoist temple overhead. Black robes, as well as embroidery on the chest. It's all illustrative. The other party is a genuine Wudong sect disciple. First meeting, in Xiao Wudong, the second-generation disciple Zhenxian. Hear this, the Lord of the Wei sect had goosebumps. I didn't notice Zhenxian. That is the first person in the Wudong Junior. It is even said that he's the first person in a young generation in the world. It's not exaggeration, but he didn't understand. Nanyang is such a small land. Why would such a figure be sent to fight? I just didn't wait for him to have the slightest clue. Zhenxian opened his mouth to speak. Nanyang is originally 1 acre of 3-point land. If there are 2 martial arts halls, there will be constant strife. It's bad for both sides. It's obvious. This is for human men. The damage was even more severe. That's why I saw him chuckle. Wudong will also be willing to give you a piece of compensation. That's why I said, as if human men should be grateful to them. What a bunch of robbers. Everything we have is in Nanyang. If you leave and abandon this 100-year-old martial arts, and what's the difference? However, Zhenxian also saw it. He could not accept the offer, so he was given a second option. There's still room to hear. The Wei sect lord was very excited, but when he heard the condition was, and you have to remove the plum blossoms from the shadow gate. Usant, Jin Hyun told him, Wudong could not accept coexistence with other Dao men. So the choice is yours. It is to make the name of Huanmin completely disappear in Nanyang, or erase the name of Huashan. Continue to stay in Nanyang. Wei Lishan's body was already seriously injured. At this time, he was even more angry and trembling. Where is this? What is the choice? However, Jinhyun's patience has also run out, since you don't want to. Then, 3 hours later, if you haven't departed, then I'll beat this place myself. Don't be angry when you sweep it clean. It's precisely because of my Wudong power to shock the rivers and lakes. Now I'll give you a choice. If the benevolent and righteous. It's just that you, the doorman, rejected our suggestion. You by Zhenhyun wanted to leave. Before leaving, he turned around and asked, you were so insistent. It shouldn't be waiting for Huashan's support. It's ridiculous that you think they're going to be a layman for you. Fight against the Wudong. However, at this time, an abrupt voice came from not far away. What nonsense are you talking about? I saw Qinglin slowly coming to the crowd. Push away the Wudong disciples who were blocking the way. Even if they've been walking the rivers and lakes for so long. I've never seen this before. Even if the person in front of him didn't recognize Wudong's identity. But normal people don't dare to use their hands. Go and push away so many people with swords. What I never expected. Another group of people pushed and shoved them. Indicates, let's make. Jin Xian's brows furrowed. At this time, Xiaoxing suddenly shook. He found his father also standing at the door of the martial arts hall. Hurriedly ran up. Said the child, live up to the trust. I came back with the Huashan disciples. It's amazing to hear. I was suddenly shocked. It turned out that they were all from Huashan. The way these people appeared was really unexpected. So much, so they didn't even notice. This will be clear. Their chests seemed to be embroidered with plum blossoms. As he watched, one of them slowly came to the door. The man hung his head. Shocked the second-generation disciples of Dao Huashan. During the day, I saw the master of Huan Gate and Willie Mountain. It's going to be so exciting that tears are going to spill out. Unexpectedly, the head of the sect would send out flower certificates for human. Come over during the day. It seems that it is really magnificent. Although it wasn't the Huashan divine dragon who came, but that flattered. It still made his body tremble, and he didn't know how to speak. However, at this time, Qing Ling suddenly jumped and ran over. I heard about it for 30 years. You've been rain or shine. Filial piety of resistance to Huashan. In the lower Huashan, Qing Ling is so happy to see you. Bach said, human is the most important among Huashan folklore. At this time, it is obvious that the door owner's mind is not yet turned. He didn't understand. How could the word Qing Ling be so familiar? But when he heard it, he couldn't believe it. But Qing Ling looked disdainful of his question. Oh, do you want me to show evidence to prove my identity? But this looks like a market. He couldn't match that supposedly. Huashan Shenlong, who was better than himself. Overlapping each other. At this point, he only felt ridiculous. Just as he was thinking about it, he suddenly said to him that we are here. It is for the lay people who are sliding down the mountain. During the day, you seem to be talking to the doorman. Now if there is anything to say directly to me, it was a burst of needle dizziness. Unexpectedly, Huashan did not stay out of the matter. That's arrogant. Even if some fame has now been restored. Where did you get the courage to be against my martial arts? Thereupon, he tentatively asked what he was going to do about it. What was given was an even more arrogant answer. He said we were coming. If you can value harmony. Nature is the best. In my opinion, Wudong doesn't seem to have this attention. Jin Xian was surprised by his aggressiveness. But after all, he is an endless sword. He is not afraid of martial arts at all. However, an abrupt taunt came. I'm afraid there's something big wrong. Jin Xian heard Qingming's words. Immediately, his face changed. On the one hand, they reprimanded the Huashan disciples for not being polite, while clenching the sword in his hand. But obviously, that's the momentum. Even Zhao Jie just glanced at it lightly. And Qing Ming didn't bother to go back. He said, "You have trespassed into someone else's noon gate. Let people get out if they don't want to die." Such a guy would even talk about etiquette. Looks like this thing is only for you. It works. However, Qing Ming did not intend to do it immediately. Learn Zhen Hyun's words and style. 3 hours later. "Come, I'll compete with you when the time comes. But you'd better be prepared to have your head hammered." Hearing this, he was furious. He said, "I could not understand that. This is the attitude of your Huashan faction. Daytime at this time," saying, grinning, "there is no reason to take back what you say, and it seems that you have already made up your mind in your heart." Hear this. The needle and thread unexpectedly put away the sword that was about to be unsheathed. He looked at Qing Ming. He said coldly, "At this hour tomorrow, and I will come to your door as you wish. But no matter what the tragic situation of Huanmin will be tomorrow, I can't blame us anymore." Look at Qing Ming again. One will say 3 hours. One will talk about the day. It's all up to you. It's better for you to just say that you were scared and want to run away. Wouldn't it be better? And Qing Ming's trick of picking on sore spots. Yin Zhong and Xiao Jie were deeply touched. Look at Jin Xian's hand that was trembling with anger. It's clear. However, unexpectedly, Zhang Hian didn't mean to act immediately. In the rain, he didn't forget to clench his fists. He said he would come back at this hour tomorrow. Then he left the place without looking back. Don't say they can bear it so much. Even Nosebleed took a look at it more, but only at a glance. In this scene, even the Wei Sect master was stunned. Looked at Xing Ling's seemingly indifferent appearance. He finally couldn't hold it anymore. The poignant voice was like that of a little resentful woman. He said, "I wanted you to mediate. But how can you have a head-on conflict with Wudong?" The more I talked, the more excited I became. He was really furious all at once. Just fainted. The Wudong disciple in the rain was still asking the senior brother, why not choose? Break a few of their bones on the spot. However, what he got was Zheng Xian's denial. Because in his opinion, do it now. I'm afraid he can't help but ask for that life called Qing Ming. And they will soon understand what will happen to being an enemy of Wudong. In the middle of the night, the alliance leader woke up from the bed. He turned his head to look at Yinping, who was guarding the side. That's what I understand. It seems that he has just fainted. On the other side, Qing Ming and several people were eating and drinking in his house. Zhao Xing was also speechless. Now he can't tell the difference, whether the situation is good or bad now. But soon Wei Lishan rushed over panting. He was angry. Now it's time. Why they still drink here? I don't know why the dorm master is like this. But he also quickly apologized. The elf asked the dorm master instead, "Would you like a drink?" The more they do, the more disappointed the heart of the door owner. After a while, he finally sighed, said that Huanmin intends to give up Nanyang. Leave it at that. Such a decision. Xiaoxin knows very well how difficult it is for his father. But Wei Lishan said, "That's it. There was nothing he could do about it. Anyway, thanks to all of you. Bought us a day. I want to say something more during the day. It can be said that the master of the door said that I don't believe you. But the opponent is the Wudong faction. Make enemies of them. Even if we get through this time, the same thing keeps going on and on, until they force us out of the South Seas." Qing Ling took a few gulps. That's when he raised his own questions. Wudong did things so out of line this time. Isn't there some genius treasure here? But what you get is a negative. After all, there really is some treasure. It's not going to be calm forever. But Qing Ling felt even more strange in his heart. After all, he knew a Wudong disciple. It is very protective of the image of its own sect. We'll do this. There must be something that most people don't know. But for now, Qing Ming means that we will not leave. The boss has an order. We must deal with the aftermath of Huanmin. Go back to Huashan, because Huashan will not forget the kindness of Huanmin. It will never ignore the vulgar. The world will soon understand this. I have to say, the young man's words moved the Lord of Wayman. Just Wei Lishan felt. I had suspected that he was too arbitrary. The elf asked him very seriously, "Can you have another pot of this superb?" Well, there's one more person whose brains have been dry by him. Meanwhile, in the dim, the Wudong disciple asked Zhen Xian, "Why don't you send someone to spy on Huanmin? What you get is a really dazzling Yaren. After all, Huashan has just regained some fame. Escaping at this point will only be beaten back to its original form again. Want to come to that guy. I can't let go of the name of Huashan Shenlong. It was before. You may also weigh the opponent's pounds and tails more. But just a look. Everyone understands. That's just a shameless hairy kid. At a young age, he is prestigious. Kill his sharpness. It is also our responsibility as elders. But let's not forget what we're here for. No matter who it is, none of this can be an obstacle to our faction. If all goes well, we will definitely be able to achieve something beyond Shaolin, the world's largest faction. That man's sword mound is for us Wudong. It's more precious than anything in the world. With just one bowl, I drank myself to the malaise. Seeing the sticky face of the senior brother, he blamed the owner of the collection teddy. I just can't stand the temptation. The result is that Wudong is close to the door. His brain was still buzzing. Qingming had no choice but to pinch his nose, disperse the smell of alcohol, and then the crazy batch lay down again. Front nonstop. See, he's enjoying it. Looked at the time and asked Uncle Sure why. Those people haven't called yet. Hearing this day, he sighed softly. He said, listen everyone, the situation is different now. Our primary purpose is to tell the world. Huashan is about to reappear in the rivers and lakes. So today's battle is not just our battle. It is also a battle in which we shoulder the name of Huashan. There is also Qingming. Since this matter, we can't be kind to Wudong. Then don't hold back when you start. Qingming was quite surprised to hear this. But didn't the boss say let's stop causing trouble? Speechless during the day. This guy was the one who caused this situation. You're still here, cheap and good. However, at this time, the movement at the gate attracted the attention of several people, and he saw a field of black land. I don't know why I left Huang Gate at this time. The master of the door, father and son, will also find them. It turned out that Rosewood didn't fall asleep last night. He knew it very well in his heart. It was not Huanmin who provoked Wudong this time. It's Huashan. If they leave the South Seas now, Hua Yinmin naturally had a chance to escape. So, whether it is nearly 100 disciples or Xiaoxing, all are safe and sound. But such a decision was so difficult for him. What do you think we should do, child? Xiaoxing looked at his father. I don't understand this little mind. But he could see his father's frustration very clearly. Huashan is the pride of his father. But my father is also my pride. I saw Xiaoxing raise his head. He said, Father, do you need to ask me? This is Huang Gate. It is the 5 doors of the layman in Huashan. How can we watch Huashan fight for us alone? And indifferent to it. And this time I went up the mountain to meet the master. He didn't hesitate. He sent his disciples to help. Maybe there's something wrong with them, but their hearts that want to help us are pure. So today I am even dead. Be with them. Fight to the end. Hearing this, Wei Lishan was silent, because these words are on his lips on weekdays. Well now, but his faith was shaken by the crisis in front of him. Xiaoxing's words hit his heart, made this middle-aged man seem to have regained his original intention. So the master of the door suddenly said, Yanping, you go and open the door, and tell the disciples who are unwilling to fight. Let them go home immediately. If Huanmin can survive the crisis, they can come back at any time in the future. I am willing to accept them unconditionally. Yanping was worried. So, I'm afraid there will be no one left. What I got was a hearty smile for the door owner. He said, Huang Door, the person who shouldered the name of Huashan to face Wudong. Even if it's just us father and son, it's enough. He was speechless. Took a deep look at the doormaster and the young doormaster. That's when I went back and carried it out. Maybe it's the last mission in Huang Gate. Wei Lishan was a little reluctant. I couldn't help but ask if he was going to leave too. Yanping said without looking back, I will not bear the name of Huashan, but I will shoulder the name of Huanmin. Advance and retreat together with the door owner. That's it. A scene where a large number of disciples have just left, and Qingming at this time turned her head to look. To his surprise, there are still many people who are willing to stay, whether it is Huanmin or their disciples. It's really good. Just like Huashan at that time. Wei Lishan said that I was delirious last night. I was not able to entertain you well. Huashan specially came to help my Huang Gate. I would like to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. During the day, it was actually quite unexpected. The master of the Hua Sect even dared to stay and make friends with Huashan. I had heard of the wind of the main canyon of Huang Gate before. That seems to be the case today. It's just that Qingming will shout again. Billy, he is really worthy of being a person who has been sticking to his love for 30 years. But you don't have to do it. You'll look at it for a while. It just so happened that they came too. Yin Zhong and Zhao Jia also found out. Unexpectedly, there were quite a few people sent by Wudong this time. At this time, Huang didn't say a word about the truth outside the door. Immediately, give the order to do it. 3 disciples were ordered. Suddenly he jumped out. This made Zhao Jia and Yin Zhong immediately tighten their posture. With the eyes of the day, he stared. There were 3 people coming. They're fast. The momentum is overwhelming. Lisa, Qing Ling didn't know when he had come behind the day. It seems that he is also in a hurry. Use the domineering internal force to compress the air into palm of your hand. The 3 people who had just rushed him were immediately blasted out. He is also speechless during the day. Glancing at Qingming, I shouldn't have said anything to this monster. Don't leave him behind. At this late hour, we can all watch the show. On the other hand, a few people were blasted out of the house. Even what hit it. I didn't see it. Jin Yan just thinks it's ridiculous. Unless the people in here are dozens of times stronger than us. But how is this possible? You follow me. Come in with me. Be careful. Maybe there's a catch. I saw Jinchuan's sword pointing at the door. In his hand, a torsion was infused into the sword. with his eyes in unison. The originally closed gate of Huang Gate was bombed. Nozomi was originally a heavy wooden block. It twisted away in a whirlwind with his strength. Stepping in here, Jinchuan was surprised not to find any traps. This scene was also cleared. Seized the opportunity to say that they have no courtesy at all. The man's brow furrowed. He stared at the scattered few people not far away. Only then did he gradually let down his guard. You're not going to use people like that. Let's do it with my Wudong disciple. I really don't know if you're confident or arrogant. This familiar expression and tone, Xiaojie and Ningzhong always feel familiar. The loss is a Xingming reminder. Isn't this the same virtue as the previous Uncle Bai Shi? This can make Uncle Shi very ashamed. Xingming learned a mouthful in style. Don't say it. Xiaojie is speechless. This is also Qingming. I guess it's a different person. Uncle Bai has to go up and fight hard. But they look so good. The more I look at it, the more confused I've become. Why do they seem so calm? I couldn't hold back for a while. It is said that Wudong has been the head of the Taoist gate since ancient times. Can't you Huashan think that you can be our enemy? And Qingming only sounds funny. Let's not go far. It was 100 years ago. Have you not also surrendered to us? Jin Young was for a while. Then he smiled very well. You're talking about the Plum Blossom Sword Venerable. But he had been defeated at the hands of our Taiji, Sword Emperor. What depends on your reaction? I don't know for sure. At that time, the two of them had a competition. And your Plum Blossom Sword Venerable lost to the ground. It's just that the Taiji Sword Emperor is generous. Afterwards, the results of the contest were hidden. Qing Ling hadn't reacted yet. The rest drew their swords and rebuked. Even more so, during the day. His name is not something you can just mention. Hey, I'm the Plum Blossom Sword Venerable. You guys are a little nicer to me. I thought to myself. Only then did I recall the person of Taiji, Sword Emperor. I did have a fight with the old man at that time. It's just that he himself proposed that the results of the competition should not be publicized. I remember he was old and back then. If you want me to say Wudong's suggestion, the special effects definitely added chicken legs to the author. I didn't hold back. Beat him unclothed. I remember I wasn't really good at that time. If it weren't for his false palm, how old would I be? And call me Big Brother. I guess I had to be beaten up at the time. But now it seems, at that time I was still too kind. Thinking of this, Qingming suddenly asked Wei Xiaoxia. I've done everything I asked you to do last night. After receiving an affirmative answer, Qingming smiled with satisfaction. Then he shook the long one violently. The sword flew out in an instant. Jinchuan is like a great enemy. But it felt as if nothing had happened. In the middle of the night he suddenly convulsed. The gatehouse of Huang Gate slammed. It shattered and collapsed in his stunned gaze. And outside of Charming, the crowd was bustling. Talk. And this is what Qingming is best at, and it's not a big deal to watch the excitement. Learned that Yin Zhong and Xiaojie could deal with 5 people. So he narrowed his eyes. Then Aunt Lu can deal with 4. During the day, Uncle Shi concentrated on dealing with the one named Jinchuan. Do you still need me to do it? Okay, uncles, aunts, and brothers. Hurry. During the day, it always feels like things are going the other way around. But Wudong disciples. Indeed, you can effectively test the results of your own cultivation. Thinking of this, he had no choice but to look ahead again. Let's let them see the Huashan swordsmanship. In this way, the disciples on both sides quickly rushed forward. It's just that Wudong seemed to be in a way of face. And not all of them. This also gave Zhao Jie the opportunity to adjust his mentality. For him, this is the first time to go down the mountain. That crazy critic used all means to torture himself. I thought I could get stronger as long as I could. Zhao Jie can stand any hardship. But I was wrong. Just 2 months after the Central China Conference, I realized that I was completely wrong. The endless cultivation has exhausted me. And I can't escape. Get through that time. The strength of the person in front of him is clear at a glance. The direction of his sword and his eyes. And the balance of the body. I want to point out the flaws in every single place. Looks like I've won. Unlike Xiaojie, Love in the film, Wudong's swordsmanship pays attention to the preemptive strike. They will be fully exposed to their opponent's moves. They make a decisive move. It is said that this is the use of strength. However, to correct this trick, it just needs to be fast. As long as the fire is big enough, water can't be easily extinguished. It's too slow. It's clear. It is obvious that although the two of them are fighting for the first time, but they were at their best very quickly. The Wudong disciples couldn't figure it out until they fainted. Why can Huashan's disciples win over them? The world's first sword gate. That's it. Their battle was somewhat cathartic. The shadow glanced at the summary. I heard him look back at himself excitedly. Aren't we getting a little too strong? It just didn't take 2 seconds for them to be happy. The anger behind him rang like a bell. It burned on both of them. Have the senior brother. Lost 3 times. The senior brother in the film is 4 times. You both waited for me afterwards. However, even so, after the battle, just now, Their toughness in Huashan's swordsmanship. There is also a deeper understanding, and this is not only for Wudong to know. It's time for the world to know. This scene probed the door owner is dry mouth. I can't see the difference in generations at all. The Huashan disciples defeated Wudong so easily. He clutched his chest. At this time, my heart was already surging. Huashan has really transformed. The disciples have all become top masters. This madman also appeared. Although previously these two types of people, Huashan should not have any. Your brothers and uncles are fighting each other. Why can you still drink? And Qingming said that they trained hard during these days. If you can lose, I'm really looking for a crack in the ground to get into. And don't look at who taught them. Meanwhile, it has been a long time since the confrontation with Zheng Hyun during the day. But Jin Xian couldn't understand why this person was so strong. And look at what he looks like. It doesn't seem to take much energy. But how is this possible? Just this battle. You can't afford to lose. Even if it costs my reputation. The Wudong disciples all started their hands. Hearing this, the Wudong disciples also had amnesia. But then it was all right. They all gritted their teeth and rushed forward. Just for a moment, they surrounded the Huashan disciples separately. Daytime glanced behind him. Such a situation of more and less fighting. I can't imagine that it was still done by the Wudong faction. My Huashan disciple's face is really big. It's really dizzy, and his heart is very uncomfortable. If it weren't for the fact that this time the matter was too big. Even if you lose the contest today, he's not going to do that. And I saw him raise his eyes and stare at the day. I admit you guys are strong, but why didn't the kid do it? Don't you look down on us, Wudong. However, during the day, he didn't look back to tell him. You're thinking too much. With your strength, you really didn't need to do it. Don't be angry. Because I'm just like you. None of them are qualified to let him shoot. There's always something strange about this world. Since there is a three-legged two-headed snake, then naturally there are also those 3 heads. A monster with 6 arms. And he's that kind of thing. But you don't have to feel sorry. I'm here to play with you. Let Huashan Shenlong make a move. It's just too overkill. To this, Jin Chuan only felt that Hua Jingjian was insulting himself. But what he didn't know was, during the day, my heart has been measuring. I don't see real blood. I've heard it all along. He is known as one of the 6 constellations in the world. If it weren't for the Central China Conference, I think Xin Jinlong will also be one of them. In other words, he and Xin Jinlong, it's a master in the same realm. See for yourself. It can be felt very clearly during the day. Needlework has deep internal strength and calm sword moves. But that's about it. Because I can make plum blossoms bloom too. 7 swords reveal what? I saw Xinchuan's dragon-like dancing sword energy. The 7 figures that were transformed by the day were instantly cut off. Although the footsteps are only 1 person, but 7 attacks. But it hit him solidly. Accompanied by the magic sword of the day, the plum blossoms that dissipated in the sky flew freely. In the moment when Xinchuan's body dissipated in this plum blossom exhibition, also burst out 7 plum blossom sword chi. Just one move. He lost consciousness completely. He fell to the ground with a thud. But the residents here, all of them seemed to be attracted by the plum blossoms in the sky. Even Qingming couldn't hold back. Where did this kid grow? The doormaster. It was also the first time he had seen such a spectacular scene. Flowers seen in the daytime. He seemed to get to everyone present. All left an unforgettable figure. It won't be pretended to be Qingming. Shouted vigorously during the day, Uncle Sure was really powerful. Immediately pulled his vanity back. And Yin Zhong on the side was crying out again and again. He said, I was the weakest of them all. Why do you have to use the most people to besiege me? Then he hurriedly pointed to the side, and you went to find him. Lu Shibu is the second strongest of the 4 of us. Look at Lu Yixue again. His sword is like a graceful dancer. The movements are clean and clean. Wudong's disciples couldn't find any flaws in it. I wanted to attack from a dead end. But I saw that his eyes were staring. The whole person is raised downward. That's it. Made the Wudong disciples also stunned. However, this one will be. Lu Yixue immediately slashed them into the air. Seeing this scene, the 3 people in the besieging film were stunned. Suddenly Daytime asked them if they wanted to continue. After all, these disciples were injured. If you don't get medical treatment immediately, I'm afraid something will happen. Will this dispute take the life of your brother? Actually, they know it. I can't win now. Hear the words of the day. Only then did he hurriedly hold up the injured fellow doorman. He staggered and was about to leave Huang Gate. Warn them during the day before leaving. Your brother has gambled on endless insight. If you don't want his name to be disgraced, don't go near Huang Gate in the future. Speaking of this, he bowed slightly and walked slowly. I don't stand here. Only then did he put away his sword. Slowly came to Wei Lishan. He said to the Lord of the Wei Sect, from now on, Huang Gate is safe. A few words. Hearing this, the Lord of Wei Min burst into tears. God knows what a lot of pressure Wudong has put on him these days. However, in face of his inexhaustible thanks, the four of them returned the salute very solemnly. For the Doormaster to speak heavily. This is my responsibility. Until his clarity, finally smiled lightly. It's a touching scene. At night, he sent away the juniors and disciples who came from afar, although the gate was ruined. But at the moment, he didn't care at all. Remembering my father's words, he couldn't help but sigh. When I look back, presumably, they are now celebrating today's feat. I couldn't help but be angry at them before. I have to apologize to them for all this. Wei Lishan pushed open the door, happily said that everyone has been waiting for a long time. However, what greeted me was a house full of messes. They shouted there to catch Qingming, but the people had kicked one by one turned on their backs. I can't stop it during the day. Hurriedly shouted to him to calm down. After all, the people in Wudong are gone. There's no need to do that now. And the boss told you not to get into trouble in 3. I beg you, boy, don't go. I saw Lime arranging her night clothes, while saying that although you are better than the samurai, I'm not satisfied. But for your sake, I don't care. However, except for senior brother Xiaojia. But here's what happened. It has nothing to do with uncles, aunts, and brothers. You don't have to worry about it. And the lime jumped out like a cannonball. The smell of Wudong's conspiracy is so strong. How could he just let them go? However, at this moment the scene of the first disaster, the Lord of Wei was still stunned. He really couldn't figure it out. What the hell is going on in Huashan? Nanyang is not big. Soon Qingming chased out of the city, and the disciples of Wudong dragged the seriously injured senior brother. I have already reached the halfway point of the mountain. The needle and thread slowly opened his eyes. The junior disciples on the side immediately surrounded him. But when he heard that this was going to leave for Wu, he sat up suddenly. It's just a stinging pain coming from my body. This reminded him that he had lost. And then I learned, in order to preserve his reputation as a true trainer, from the gym is also to clean up the bags today. Evacuation of Xianyang will be made tomorrow morning. At this time, he only felt hot on his face. Just the thought of that building. He immediately called the senior brother of Xinfu. He said you return to Wudong as fast as possible. Be sure to inform the door of the situation. You can't just go back, even if it's on standby in the mountains. No need. The sudden sound scared really a fierce one. Look closely. Only then did they find out that the person who came was their Uncle Wuzhen. He's one of the disciples of the current Wudong generation. One of the 3 strongest people. But why is he the 3 swords of Wudong? Now I'm in Nanyang. Just who he is enough to attract the attention of many people in the rivers and lakes. In such doubts, Wuzhen didn't care too much. But when he learned what happened to his disciples in Huanmin, only then did his face show deep displeasure. Jin Hyun didn't lose his fame alone. Because of his every move, the world laughs or scolds. Will always be the Wudong standing behind him. Jin Hyun actually understands. Therefore, Uncle Shirs would fully accepted by him. But the key is in. His heart could not be calm. But Wuzhen said, Nanyang, they were going to give up. Because the mystery of the sword mound has been solved inside their door. So I plan to bypass Nanyang directly. Take only the secret treasure. But the shame of losing to Huashan is necessary in future. Get back for me. Now what you have to do is cheer me up. The injured disciples return to Wudong first. The rest will go with me. In Jin Xian, your injury should be calmly judged by yourself. That's not something to be ashamed of. Just point. Wu Jinming turned his head. Needlework was also taken aback. I don't know what happened to Uncle Shir all of a sudden. I heard Wu Zhen's cold voice coming out slowly. Show up now. Take a closer look. The person who came was dressed in black. Wu Zhen could feel that the other party was not simple. So he didn't continue to speak. Until a man in black jumped off. He just stared at each other. The two looked at each other. The visitor suddenly said that he was a passing robber. I wanted to ask, the sword mound you just talked about, can you tell me what it is? I'm so stunned. Ask coldly. It must be a bandit who came here to rob. Suddenly, in this case, then I am a bandit. It's clear that this man is absolutely insane, and there are patterns engraved on the sword. He is a madman of the Huashan faction. You are the Huashan Divan Dragon. No, I'm not. You're too obvious, isn't it? The bastard was so angry that he smoked. He really didn't expect it. This man did not care about Huashan's reputation at all. And Qingming heard this. Instead, he scratched his ears. I don't know if it's possible. But suddenly Wu Zhen turned around. It seems that you are indeed not a disciple of Huashan. Absolutely not. It's just that. Cut down a robber who threatened us. I saw Qingming squinting his eyes. He didn't expect this uncle to be quite smart. At this time, Wu Zhen finally confirmed. Will Qingling take off his mask? Pout out and admit your mistakes. What I got was a chuckle from Qingling. He said if only you could be honest. Explain the matter of the sword mount clearly. I can really make you good. Get out of here. Otherwise, Wu Zhenyaran saw him slowly draw out his long sword. That being the case, even if I beat you to a serious injury, it makes sense. Clear Zero saw the other party's appearance. Suddenly in the bottom of my heart, just the momentum that emanates from this person. It was already in harmony with a long sword in his hand, even if it is a second-generation disciple. After all, martial arts are only the level of young descendants. But this man is the real sword cultivation of Wudong. Let me give you one last word of advice. It's best to be careful with your head. I'm a man. It's just a little fetish. Huashan has a seal. He was ordered by his master to relieve the siege of the Lei martial arts. However, not only did he not do anything, brought the uncles and drove away the Wudong disciples, but he had to go and beat them up again. However, when he followed the group of people who had left Xinxin, he met Wu Zhen, the first disciple of Wudong, and Zhenhyun only felt in a trance. Recalled Hua Xingjin's words. This guy can't really be three-headed and six-armed. But it said that he's not even 15 years old. How could he be better than Uncle Wu Zhen, who is 30 years older than him? Look at Qingming again. He said, let's make a bet. If I win, then I want to know about the sword shrine. And Wu Zhen only thought it was funny. A hairy boy. Even if you beat your mother's womb, you will practice martial arts. It's impossible to win against yourself. But his Wudong is the first gate in the world. Today's dereliction of duty in Nanyang is indescribable. I have to get it back if I have this opportunity. So Wu Zhen said, if you lose, I want you to kowtow to me and apologize. And admits that Huashan is not as good as Wudong at all. Clear and right. Warner urged him to hurry up and do it when he decided. This made Wu Zhen very surprised, angry and arrogant. Even his eyes were a little colder. But the young man didn't care how much pride he had in his heart. A sword swinched. Wu Zhen's face suddenly had a trace of blood. Look at the repertoire behind him that was cut off by the other party. It seems to be up to this moment. He finally took it completely. The previous contempt was raised. And Qingming's way of greeting is a little rougher. But he didn't want to be distracted by Wu Zhen's distraction. Let him lose. It is a rare opportunity to experience the changes in martial arts of the rivers and lakes in the past 100 years. Thank you for your mercy. Qingming is so drooping. Fitness trifles. Now it's time to do your best. However, the next second, Qingling shook suddenly. Wu Zhen actually escaped his lock. Suddenly appeared in front of the teenager. But this scene appeared. Qingling looked very happy. Wu Zhen's sword was only in a moment. It went from a straight stab to a great card. With a boom. It was obvious that his basic swordsmanship was already on fire. Pure green dust in the smoke. Wu Zhen jumped out suddenly. It seems that there is no need for the help of vision at all. He locked onto the lime's position completely. And his sword took by momentum. As a result, the lime had to resort to the power of the mountain. In order not to be upset by it, Lime had to use the word sucking trick all the time. Control your body shape. The confrontation between the two. Wu Zhen didn't give him any breathing space. But he's always relied on. It's more about the endless internal force of Wudong. Even how Wu Zhen changed his sword moves. Lime did not immediately mobilize its internal forces to contend with it. And it seems the teenager can basically hide. Never resist. Take advantage of his nimble form. Instead, let it find an opportunity. A kick at Wu Zhen's front door. I dodged it, but the shock still throws it off balance. See the scene? It's a big surprise. But before he could call out his uncle, suddenly stopped. A sword chi that stretched into the river suddenly rose into the sky. This scene is very clear. The first generation of disciples and the second generation of disciples of Wudong. The reason why there is a difference between cloud and mud, fundamentally, is the difference in internal forces. This clear stream sword. If it weren't for the internal strength of accumulation, it is impossible to show such momentum as it is now. But this move is not enough to see. Seeing Qingling's sword splitting his own Qinglu's sword technique, Wu Zhen was also taken aback. But then his eyes flickered. I saw a majestic internal force in his body. Crazy poured into the long sword in his hand. The sword chi formed by the internal force. Immediately, it gushed out like a river into the sea. The light is a windswept needle and thread that is rolled up. There is an illusion of being swallowed by it. His mind. Uncle Wu Zhen's Taishin swordsmanship is a great success. No matter how perverted this kid is, he should be able to stop it. Seeing that the young man was devoured by his uncle's sword chi, Wu Zhen also exerted his strength. However, his face was suddenly covered with horror. Qingling actually only used the sword. He split his sword chi again. Suddenly, the sword chi regurgitated back into Wu Zhen's body with a bang. The sudden rise made him almost faint on the spot. When looking at teenagers, his eyes were already full of punishments. Today's Wudong, 3 swords. It's not at the same level as it was 100 years ago. That being the case, you could have beat me up first. And the sword in Wu Zhen's eyes was rapidly approaching. In a panic, he immediately rolled and dodged. But with that comes a shock. But he was immediately shocked away. At this time, Wu Zhen's fighting spirit decreased sharply. If I ate it by myself just now, the biggest possibility is to be wiped out on the spot. I'm much weaker than him. The moment this thought sprung up in his heart, and was immediately snuffed out by him, I saw him staggering to his feet. Since a piece of breath can't hurt you, and I'll show you it. The real horror of Mianchi. The river flows endlessly. I saw the original green lotus chi. In Wu Zhen's hands, it split into countless paths and flocked to the lime. Seeing this young man, he smiled lightly. I wouldn't have been so bored if I did. See the lime's body. Suddenly it became like a flower petal, elegantly and smartly. As a matter of course, he passed through the fluttering lotus energy. The scene is too weird. It's really dazzling to see that the scalp is numb. After all, let God go. In the face of this, a large-scale move like an internal catharsis. It's not going to be hard, is it? However, the action of Qingming, Wu Zhen seems to have been prepared. He even hid a lingering aura around him, in order to prevent similar accidents. Seeing that the shock flew away from each other, Michi couldn't reach that far for a while. But what are the shortcomings of his own moves? He knows best. So Wu Zhen immediately burst out with the palm. Another fierce and furious slammed into the body of the Qingming sword, and I saw him with his sword raised. This changed the original long trajectory. But how could Wu Zhen only have this kind of means? The long change made his palm wriggle immediately. The whirling palm struck from behind Qingming in an instant. Seriously, he didn't expect it. This Wu Zhen can even come up with this kind of move. It's really a lot of hard work. But I saw Qingling kicking on his hind feet. Suddenly, an extremely powerful explosion was generated in midair. Even if there is no array, it's hard to see what just happened. But it's clear. Qingling swooped all the way, with his strength just now. It's approaching at breakneck speed. Seeing this, Wu Zhen jumped back violently. His cut instantaneous. He cracked all his opponents. It made him feel extremely powerless. And so on. It didn't work. Must win although there is an order in the door. I'm not allowed to use this trick yet. But Jin Xuan also discovered Uncle Shi's movements. That's the writer's style of Tai Chi Hui Jian. It symbolizes the commanding heights of Wudong swordsmanship. The door has already taught Uncle Shi this trick. And Qingming looked at this familiar Taiji diagram. But in his eyes, it was like eating. He was angry. Indeed, this trick is very strong. Use your own skillful swordsmanship. They can't beat me. He even dared to use unfamiliar swordsmanship. Are you looking for death? That's it. Qingming simply used the long sword as a hammer and smashed it. Wu Zhen could hear it very clearly. A crunch came from his own waist. He couldn't figure it out. Originally thought that this move would definitely be able to turn the tables. But why is it clear this time? It has been determined that this person has a hole in his brain. These are the famous disciples. Even after 100 years, it's not any growth at all. It's not a question of strength or weakness. It's just that there are too few people to fight. There is no performance in a heart. In a daze, Wu Zhen seemed to hear a brain. All he could think about was getting out of the way. So he slammed his sword across his head. But what he didn't expect was this. Qingling used it as a long sword to smash with a hammer. Suddenly he paused in midair. Wu Zhen, who wanted to borrow his strength to leave, was also stunned. Be a second. Lime's fist was already in his face. Seeing Uncle Shi being abused like this, the disciples of Wudong have long been like frightened birds. Until this time, Wu Zhenjiang is unconscious, and Lime looks like a fool. Glanced at him, let him protect his head. Only know how to resist with the horizontal sword. This time, you should teach you a lesson. It's just that he's suddenly a spirit. I knocked him unconscious. What about the news of the sword mound? So he scratched his head, and the roll call was made. Qingming hooked his fingers, motioned for him to come over. Needlework and thread will blow up your head. That's it now. Who would dare to go over? But he didn't dare to disobey the other party. I had to come over slowly. However, Qingming asked him about the sword shrine, but the needle and thread would not say a word. Qingming guessed that he should be a hardbone. But since you don't want to say, then I'll wake up this guy who should be talking. After all, Mei was between me and him. Oh, over the years, I have always felt that the five forces cannot be solved. All the things in this world. But most of them I think can be solved. Either I'll beat him up until I wake up, or beaten to death. Don't tell me. In this way, the needlework is under the obscenity of this devil. A wooden word was spoken. He said you should put Uncle Shi down first. And Qingling lifted him up instead. After shaking it, Wu Zhen smiled and said, don't worry. Just make it clear. At this time, the needle and thread were already numb and unconscious. As explained a while ago, Wudong, a layman, was robbed. In the course of their hunting investigation, stumbled upon a treasure map. And we unraveled the secrets of the treasure map, only to find out that it was a sword mound, and the location is near Nanyang. But now only the directions are known. It's not clear. This is to avoid people's eyes. Deliberately made it difficult for human. Hear this. Qingming felt that they were chasing after Nanyang. It also makes sense. But what the hell is this sword shrine? The needle and thread had to continue to explain. The sword mound they were looking for was actually a tomb. And the owner of that tomb is named Sword Snatcher. At this time, Qingming's reaction was finally a little intense. Grabbing the sword without a trace is the Plum Blossom sword owner. The first person in the world in the previous generation. Is a character who was active 200 years ago. No wonder they called this man's tomb a sword mound. But that's not right. The name of the first in the world. There are countless in the history of the trickle. And Yuudong. It's not a small sect that hasn't seen the world. So what's in that sword shrine? It was clear that Qingming asked, I don't want to talk about the key training. But the young man shook Wu Zhan in his hand. It scared him out again. In desperation, he had to continue to say, grabbing the sword without a trace. There is no door, no faction. With an almost sideways attitude. Issued a challenge to the swordsmen of the world. And every time he triumphed, we'll take away those masters' weapons. So after the sword disappeared on the rivers and lakes without a trace, there was a rumor in the world. He has a magic weapon to usher in. All of them were placed in their own tombs. Even that place must have his martial arts secrets. If anyone can find a master of the sword, whoever can say that. Qing Ling interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Don't tell this cliché story. So you're trying to dig up his grave. Take away the divine soldiers and martial arts. Seeing Zhun Xian nodding. Only then did Qingming stretch out his hand to catch Wu Zhan. A big fight called out. There's not a word of truth in your mouth. Wu Zhan, this kid, is this how to educate the people under you? Zhun Xian also wanted to explain. Was pulled over by him. You really didn't lie to me. I just didn't say it all. Okay, you don't have to say it. Wait until I wake this guy up. Let him tell me for himself. I believe. Wudong made such a fuss just for those things. If Zhang Jinyue heard this, I'm afraid I'm going to come down from heaven. I'm going to smash all your heads. Seeing that his uncle was about to be killed by Qingming. It's a really dazzling jump, and Qingming suddenly stopped the movement in his hand. Even if you don't say it, I've robbed you of your treasure map. The scent can be found by doing your own research. But dare to fool me. Naturally, there's a price. At the moment when Qingming started, Jinchuan stared at Uncle Shi, who had already turned into a pig's head. He shouted violently that it was the medicine fairy. Then I heard a clatter. The wind rose in the woods. And Qing Ling's fist also stopped. At this time, he couldn't take care of the man in his hand, looking at the needle and thread squarely. Capture the sword without a trace. It turned out to be the first alchemy in ancient and modern times. Is it a medicine fairy? After receiving an affirmative reply from the other party, even Qing Ling's eyes couldn't help but widen. Then he laughed stupidly. That's right, it should be the medicine fairy. Does that make sense? The world knows almost nothing about him except for alchemy. The mixed yuan pill he refined contained extremely strong internal force. Even if it was 100 years ago, but where there is a mixed yuan dan in the world, it will inevitably cause a bloody storm. And now this is the wrath of the immortals. What does that mean? There will also be a danfeng of the mixed yuan dan there. Seeing that Uncle Shi was saved, the needle and thread trembled. Take a long sigh of relief. Raise your eyes to look at this devil-like boy. His mask was stained with saliva. Think about coming and going. There is no point in hiding anything. So Zhen Xian brought everything together. He said that the sword was inexplicably powerful back then. There are already many people who suspect that he is a medicine immortal, although he himself denied it. But after his death, a friend of his Niclia, but secretly shook out his identity. Today, only a very small number of sects are aware of this. So now, can you let us go? I saw Qing Ling patting his chest. He said reassuring, bring the treasure map and go. Looking at Zhen Xian's frightened eyes, Qing Ling even felt that it should be taken for granted. After all, you've cracked the treasure map too. I know the news. Sooner or later, you Wudong will be lucky at. Chase me for revenge. I won't even have a treasure map by then. Isn't it that there is no benefit at all? So at least you have to give me the treasure map. Am I not losing money on this deal? If not, I saw Qing Ling slowly raise one foot. There was a loud bang throughout the valley. The choice is yours. It's to hand over the treasure map. Let me bury you here, going ahead until I found the sword shrine. And Jin Yun trembled and looked at the devil in front of him. As one of the 6 major stars in the world, he's here. This will not be able to hold back the grievances. Cry out. There is group Manhwa Sect. It's hard to crack the whole family's efforts. Their brains are hot. I'm going to use it for one night. Find the first treasure in the world. Dare to give a seal. They dare to take it. The love of the same door is vivid. It's no wonder that Qingming just dropped the treasure map from Wudong. Look up. He knew every single one. Put it together. It becomes a foggy flower. But he wasn't convinced. Can this little thing stomp my plum blossom, sword venerable? That's it. Qingming's eyes are almost cut into the sheepskin sebum. What I got was a lot of trouble. blame him for embarrassment. People's specialty is to knock people's heads and use their brains. When have you ever done such a thing? Thereupon, he pinned his hopes on his uncle and brothers. It's just that the Wudong sect will definitely send a large number of disciples to come. The time left for Qingling is only 3 days. However, the Danfeng of the mixed Yuan Dan is to make Huashan an important thrust to become the first sword gate in the world. At all costs, this thing can't be given to them. Just stay in the film center of Huang Gate. That's amazing. He wanted his uncles to go with him to get Qingling back. But what you get is the appearance of being tired and unloved during the day. That guy even found it. Can we stop him? I don't know what sins I did in my previous life. In this life, he has such a nephew as him. However, Xiaojie is quite optimistic. He said, "Is that guy really going to get into trouble?" But these words were heard in their hearts. It blew up. Qingming Chuang's disaster has been settled by itself every time, yes. But we are put on hold by the suffering that we have been implicated in. Who's going to talk to? Obviously, there are nosebleeds now. It seems to be quite calm. But suddenly he seemed to feel something back. I heard a clang. The place where Qingming landed. It seems to have knocked out another door to the heart. I saw him take out the scroll and say, "Let's take a look." Behind this picture is hidden and slow. You're saying you just beat someone up. Seeing that Uncle Sure was probably behind his ears, Qingming said impatiently again, "Qinglu's sword has no shock." Well, just look at this little expression during the day. He finally understood. This guy just went to rob the Wudong sect. Also beat up the strongest disciple of the generation. You're a madman. How to solve the consequences of this matter? You're more arrogant than plucking a feather in a tiger's mouth. It was clear that there was no strength to think during the day. What's next? But Qingming suddenly stopped his uncle. This is a treasure map of the tomb of the medicine immortal. What does mixed Yuan Dan mean? Need I tell you? If Uncle sure thinks it's inappropriate, I'll give him back. Hearing this day is also like a stalk in the throat. This thing is absolute poison. Why is it a mixed Yuan Dan? It is rumored that this thing can increase its power for several years with a single pill. How does this make me give up? Coupled with the agitation of the Qingling. Finally, everyone had different expressions. Xiaojie also thinks, now that the disaster is over. So now, before they swarm in, cracking the gangsters is the best policy. Unexpectedly, even Yin Zhong felt it. Now we can only take a hard bet. And during the day, the skull will crack open. He gritted his teeth. Just crack this picture. Right here this. Qingming smiled instead. Indeed, as long as you can crack this picture, he'll find a way to get into the sword shrine no matter what. Seeing that there is no room for maneuver. During the day, I really had to leave behind those messy thoughts. One way to the dark, and senior sister Lu. We must do whatever it takes. Crack this picture tonight, for the sake of mixing Yuan Dan. I was glad to see this clear spirit, obviously forced to get on a thief ship, but it's going to be just as enthusiastic. Even not far from Huang Gate, the owner of the door pushed open the door in surprise. He was helpless. There was not even a single intact wall left that had been torn down, hid from where they came. My own heart pattern is getting worse day by day. Just as he was thinking about it, the dorm master suddenly covered his chest. He coughed violently. He understood. Internal injuries are not healed by medication. But now Hua Lingmin has finally survived the crisis. He can't let people see him like that. Staggered to the couch. The middle-aged man could only pin his hopes on it. Get another sleep. Maybe it could be better, as long as we settle down. And he handed it over to his son to take over. There won't be much resistance either.